Hello everybody and welcome to today's Introduction to Crowdfunding webinar. This session we're going to be featuring our partnership, our collaboration with Tech4Good. So we'll be looking at how to crowdfund for tech-based projects or digital-based projects, and we'll also be hearing from some of our wonderful guest speakers. We've got Catherine Grenier from Attendable, one of the judges of the Tech4Good Awards, and we've also been joined by Victoria Lupton from Scenario, and they've actually crowdfunded a few times with us. Got some brilliant inspiration and some hints and tips for you on how to put together a really engaging and successful crowdfunding campaign. Just a few bits of housekeeping before we get started. We have allowed an hour for this session, and that does include a Q&A with you all at the end. So please do make use of the chat box, which you should find on the right hand of your screen. My colleague Charlie is in that chat box as we speak, so do feel free to put any questions in there and we'll loop back round to those at the end of the session. We will make sure that we share any relevant links as well into that chat box, so you've got some additional resources to take away with you. We should say that this whole session is being recorded. Don't worry, you're not going to feature on the recording, so do feel free to sit there with a cup of tea, maybe your lunch, and really absorb the great content that we've got for you today. We will send round a copy of that recording as part of a follow-up email after the session as well, so you'll have access to the recording to watch back in your own time, and also some of those links that we'll be handing out today. We do have a really jam-packed session, so I want to make sure we have enough time to cover absolutely everything. So let's get started. For some of you here today, you might be just wanting to find out a little bit about what crowdfunding is. It might be quite a new concept to you. So just to give you an overview, crowdfunding is the process of going out to your community, to your audience or your network, and raising money from those around you to make an idea happen. Crowdfunder UK, which is our platform, was actually set up around 10 years ago. We're in our 10th year now. And the idea was to set up a fundraising platform to allow different people within the community to raise money to tackle society's challenges by making those ideas happen. So the most successful campaigns that we see coming through our platform have some kind of positive impact, whether that be for business growth, for the community around them, maybe it's a charity cause, personal cause. We see so many different ideas come through the platform, but that is the one thing that they have in common. So to date, just a few numbers here for you. We've raised over, or helped projects raise, I should say, over £302 million towards making those ideas happen. We see around 300 different projects adding to our platform daily. So as I mentioned, there's a huge wealth of different types of projects out there for you to go and have a look at and gain some inspiration from for your own project. We've also worked with extra funding partners. So again, to date, we've seen over £26 million worth of additional funding, we call it extra funding, distributed to eligible projects. And we'll look in a little bit more detail about what I mean by extra funding a little bit later in the session. Just a brief overview then of how it actually works, the concept of using our platform to raise money digitally. So first and foremost, you'd sign up to Crowdfunder UK. You'd create an account with us, which is free to do. You'd then go on to create a unique project page that's going to tell your story and really explain your idea to your potential audience, so your group of potential supporters, which we will call your crowd. You set a target, so how much you need to raise in order to make that idea happen, and you can choose how long you may need to actually raise that target. We know that around 4 to 5 weeks is a really optimum amount of time to run a crowdfunding campaign, but you can choose to run it for a little bit longer or shorter, whatever fits best with your timeframes and the amount of money that you need to raise. You would then go on to add any rewards that you would like to list, and we'll talk about rewards in a second, and then apply for any additional funding that you may have been matched with. So when you're listing rewards, it's a great idea to be creative. Rewards essentially are a way to incentivize people's giving. You want to make sure that you reach out to your network and you source a variety of different rewards with a wide appeal. So you want to be thinking about your potential audience when you're listing those rewards and things that might be of an appeal to them. And then you want to check for any of that extra funding through your project dashboard. And we'll look at that in a bit more detail in a few more slides time. But essentially, if your project is eligible, our wonderful computer system will actually match you with any of our extra funding partners that we think will be a good fit, and you can apply for those through your project page. You will then go on to launch your project. So you'll set your project live and you'll start spreading the word with your friends, your professional contacts, contacts within your community, and really start to promote your campaign and shout about the wonderful things that you're doing. And that will ideally turn to pledges and donations onto your page. Okay, so I mentioned rewards there. So a reward is essentially a benefit of some kind in return for a financial contribution. So the idea is that you can have things listed on your project page with a price point attached to them. And we always recommend that you have varied price points. So you can list things from £1 upwards into the thousands if you wish. But the idea is that you are giving something back to your supporters in return for their financial contribution to your project. There is a slight caveat with that. It can't be kind of shares in the company or anything like that. But what it can be is products, services, experiences, maybe even tickets to an event that you might be holding to help the fundraising effort. So think creatively. Think about things that you might be able to offer, but also those around you within your network that might be able to gift you something that you could actually list as a reward. We've got lots of brilliant information on our website and in our Knowledge Hub about the kind of things that people have listed, some really creative ideas, but also taking a look at other projects, as I mentioned, can be a great way to get some inspiration on those rewards. There are lots of additional benefits to crowdfunding as well. Of course, you're going to be looking to raise the all-important money that you need to make your idea happen. But it's a really good thing to have in the back of your mind all of these additional benefits that will come along with running a crowdfunding campaign. So first of all, it's a great way to validate your idea, for yourselves to build some confidence in your idea. Once you start getting some really nice positive feedback from those that want to see it happen, it can really help to boost your confidence and give you that all-important kind of nudge to really put your all into making this thing happen. It's a really brilliant way and a low risk way to see if there is an appetite for what you're trying to do. So it might be that you're bringing a product to market, or it could be that you're hoping to run a project within your local community, for example. It's a brilliant way to test the water and see if people are going to get behind it, or that they are going to develop a customer base off the back of running this crowdfunding campaign without having to put any money up front in order to do that. So a brilliant R&D experiment or a marketing kind of research idea, just to see if it's going to come to fruition and it's going to take off and people are going to want to get behind you. That, of course, will build awareness as to what you're doing. It's going to really create a buzz around your idea, and it's going to get people excited to see your crowdfunder be successful and actually see your idea come to life, especially if it's going to be something that might benefit them personally. That could be, as I mentioned, maybe your potential customers or people within your community that are going to be your beneficiaries. You may well get noticed by a wider audience, so we do give you all of the tools and resources to be able to self-promote your campaign and really tap into all of the different networks and potential audiences that are out there, and how to write things like engaging press releases to make sure that you can really push your message far and wide to make sure you're building a great level of awareness. Everybody that does support your campaign will automatically become one of your advocates. They will go on to talk to their friends and their family about the wonderful crowdfunding campaign that you're running, the wonderful work that you're doing. They will automatically help to spread the word on your behalf, and that's going to build a really engaged audience going forward. That can lead to some really lovely, meaningful connections as well. And often we see that there's lots of lovely collaboration and partnerships that happen off the back of a crowdfunding campaign for different organisations. You will also potentially learn some new skills. So raising money on a digital platform is not something that everybody has done before. We make sure that we give you all of the resources and the knowledge to be able to do that really successfully. And if you engage with all of the different tools that we have, you will find that you're learning new skills that you can use in different areas of your life. So things like creating engaging content, self-promoting, networking, using kind of social media and the internet by way of a promotional tool. All of these things might not be something you do in your day-to-day job, but we will give you everything that you need to actually learn these skills. And then finally, that extra funding and support that we have on offer. So we actually work with over 70 national and regional partners currently to have, I think it's around £10 million on the platform now available to eligible projects. So as I mentioned, if your particular project is matched with one of these funders or even a few multiple different funders, you can apply for any and every fund that you have been matched with to have a real boost towards your fundraising potential. You may find that they want to support you with some additional funding and put a pledge onto your crowdfunding campaign. And you can also opt to apply for more than one of those pots of money. So it can be a really, really wonderful, wonderful boost to your fundraising efforts. Okay, one of the other things that we do on our platform is we do work in partnership with a few different organisations and a few different things that happen kind of annually throughout the year. And one of those things is actually the Tech4Good Awards. So we know that crowdfunding for various things is a really, really brilliant way to raise money towards a project. However, raising money for digital projects and tech-based projects can also be a brilliant thing to crowdfund for, especially if they do have that positive impact that I mentioned. So using digital technology to improve the lives of others is something that Tech4Good are all about. And we really support that at Crowdfunder because we know that those things go hand in hand when actually engaging with that potential community and that crowd. So somebody who's here to tell us all about the Tech4Good Awards and their involvement in that is the wonderful Catherine Grenier from Attendable. Oh, what's happened here? My slides jumping all over the place. Catherine, are you there? Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us, or for having me, and for the partnership on Tech4Good. So just to start off, to introduce myself, I'm the Managing Director of Attendable, and we are an inclusive events agency. We often get asked what does that mean. We work with non-profit organisations, purpose-led campaigns, causes, CSR teams and departments, diversity and inclusion teams to produce all kinds of events in the business to business space, from awards programs to conferences, to webinars, any kind of networking events, all that kind of stuff. And we believe that all events should be accessible and inclusive to everybody, and that engaging your entire audience is the right thing to do, and the most rewarding way to conduct business. So that's a bit about what we're about. We partner with AbilityNet set up the Tech4Good Awards in 2011. So quite a long standing awards program with an amazing alumni of past winners over that time. So some that have gone on to become quite famous, like What 3 Words, were a Tech4Good Awards winner, and Be My Eyes, which is an amazing app that allows blind people to utilize somebody else's vision, quite literally, to assist with day-to-day tasks, orientation, that kind of thing, and so many more. Some who've obviously crowdfunded with through our partnership with Crowdfunder, and this year Attendable partnered with AbilityNet to deliver the awards. We had 9 fantastic categories. This year the awards opened up. We opened it up globally. So in the past, it's been kind of predominantly UK focus. From time to time, we had some international categories. We had a Tech4Good for Africa category that was popular, but we always got a lot of interest and applications from organizations all over the world. And we broadened out our kind of network of partner organizations, and we had entries from literally every corner of the globe, which was absolutely fantastic and so uplifting and encouraging to read about all the great uses of technology to make the world a better place, which is fundamentally what the award's about. That's what we celebrate, and we nurture it through the partnerships, through events like this, providing support, signposting to others like yourselves at Crowdfunder who can help our finalists and winners go on and do more and do better. So yeah, delighted to be here.
Amazing. And it's such an exciting kind of industry to be in, isn't it? Kind of the tech industry where they're having such wonderful positive impact, and that legacy then that's continuing from all of these wonderful projects and ideas. And we've had quite a few, as you mentioned, come through the crowdfunding platform. Is there any advice or anything that you've noticed over your time kind of working with the Tech4Good Awards and those projects that have crowdfunded? Anything that you would say works well when you're crowdfunding for maybe a tech or digital based project, or things that you've seen which might be a bit of a hurdle even for those types of projects?
So I think what works well is those organizations that can really distill down what the ask is. You know, at the end of the day, it's a communications exercise. So if you're good at, clearly articulating what it is you want, then you're more likely to be able to take people on that journey with you. Anything where it gets complicated or it's not quite a clear vision, I think, your audience may be willing, but they just get a little bit confused and get left behind. So I like to keep things simple and always across everything I do. And I think the same applies here. Be really clear on what you're fundraising for. And think before you start, how are we going to tell that story? And imagine, put yourself in someone else's shoes. Imagine what would inspire you to dig deep into your pockets and to support a campaign. And I think the other thing is that people don't realize going into crowdfunding that you actually get some non-financial benefits from it. So you get a more active audience. You get people pledging support in kind, or opening doors to other contacts that may be useful, maybe not immediately, but further down the line. So that they're kind of like the hidden benefits of crowdfunding. But that comes from having a really clear vision and mission, and what do I want to achieve? And I think the flip side of that is really the barriers. So those that don't have that really, it's worth spending that time. And if you don't, you can get a bit lost. And I think also for some, maybe it's too soon in your journey. You're maybe just, that little bit at the early stages of, being a startup, and you haven't quite got the resources in place to utilize a platform like Crowdfunder. You do need someone that can, create Crowdfunder obviously provide great support and mentoring and stuff throughout. But you do need a person within your organization to kind of dedicate some resource to it. So I think that those are maybe a couple of the barriers.
Some really great advice there. And I think things that people don't necessarily take into account where they're very excited about this new idea and they want to just kind of go for it. But you're completely right. Taking a step back and kind of thinking, is this the right time? Do we have all our ducks in a row to be able to really convey this message? Clearly, what are we actually raising money for at this point in our journey? Those are all brilliant questions to kind of sit down and really ask yourself. Would you think as well, in terms of those planning stages, maybe reaching out and getting some feedback from people that aren't so involved in the actual product or project to kind of say, how does this read with you as somebody that isn't someone that lives and breathes this idea, because they do need to be able to really connect with the kind of every person, not somebody that already understands what this idea is all about. Would you agree?
Well, 100%. I mean, I always say, if you can get your mum and dad to understand what it is you do or what you're asking for, with all due respect to my own parents, or your granny or your granddad, or somebody that there's not in your world at all. If you can get them to understand what it is you're about and what you're looking to achieve, that's a real acid test, because it has to be, you're competing for attention. How many hundreds of projects join Crowdfunder every day? All of those hundreds of projects are looking for funding, and they're looking for your support. So you've got to grab the attention. So your imagery has to be good, your messaging has to be clear. You have to be able to kind of really quickly grab hold of people's attention. And you'll refine that definitely by asking people sort of outside of your team, as Zoe says, those that don't live and breathe it every day, to kind of sense check what it is you're saying, because we can all convince ourselves that it's absolutely clear to me, and we all fall into the kind of using jargon or terms that we think sound really cool and persuasive, but actually people don't talk like that. So you want it to be in kind of plain English and really nice and straightforward, and don't try and be clever or dress it up or anything like that.
Yeah, completely true. I think it's the difference between a potential industry elevator pitch, where you might want to use all of those kind of words that will resonate with that type of person, versus you're talking to somebody who might not have any idea of what it is that is your concept. So that, it's your two kind of audiences. And if you can strike a balance somewhere in between, where actually you're going to get people that have a really avid interest in what it is that you are raising money for, and will understand the jargon and will understand these bits and pieces. However, the majority of the people that will potentially support your campaign are supporting the people behind it, are supporting the great idea, and they just need to really have that, really plainly explained to them, and what that money is going to go towards.
Yeah, absolutely. They're buying into you, and it's people that sell ideas. And the platform's a tool to enable that. So you've got to let your personality shine through, or the personality of the project, whatever it is, and be clear on what they get in return as well. Because at the end of the day, you're asking them to give some money, and what am I getting back? And the other thing I would say is, also, you never know who they might talk to. So somebody in your immediate kind of customer base or your network, your stakeholders, if they're really inspired by what you're doing on Crowdfunder, they might tell their friends, they might repost and share to their networks. And that's ultimately what you want. But then these people are kind of 1 step, 2 steps removed from you. So you've got no idea really who this audience is. And it's a chance to grow your audience. And you're going to do that, by having a really clear and succinct sort of message.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Catherine. Some really brilliant advice there. Would you mind kind of hanging on in the wings until we have the Q&A at the end? I'm sure there will be some great questions coming through for you.
Absolutely. I'd be delighted to. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. We'll see you shortly. Brilliant advice there from Catherine. And really goes hand in hand with any crowdfunding campaign. So the principles are the same. Everything that Catherine was saying there about kind of tech or digital based projects is all relevant for any project that comes through the platform. So some brilliant advice. So we'll just look quickly now at our 3 steps to success. So first and foremost is planning. It's really important to dedicate a nice chunk of time towards planning your project. Ideally, we recommend the same amount of time that you're hoping to run a live campaign for. So ultimately kind of 4 to 5 weeks, maybe 6 weeks. You want to dedicate a similar amount of time to actually planning that project. You're going to create a plan of who's going to do what. Try and delegate to people if you can. Bring in a team of people around you, so you're not doing it on your own, and you've got different sets of eyes and different skill sets to draw upon when you're putting things together. So have a plan of who's going to do what. what your time frames look like as well. Make sure that you have in mind who you're going to reach out to bring in those donations. So develop something we call a network map. We'll look at that in a moment. And make sure that you're building your community in the early stages of planning and really getting people excited about the upcoming crowdfunder so that they are really ready and willing to get behind you as soon as it launches. Also then creating your project page. You need to tell us that story in a really engaging way. And Catherine highlighted there just how important it is to put yourself in the shoes of your potential supporters and make sure that you're explaining things and telling your story in a way that resonates with those that might not have much to do with you and your organization, that might not already know about what it is that you do. You're trying to engage a potentially new audience, as well as trying to connect with those that are close to you. So try and have those different messages balanced within your page. Offer those rewards if you can and set your target. And then, of course, running your campaign. You want to have a launch date in mind and try and stick to that if you can. Launch your project, start spreading the word with your friends and family in the first instance, and then actually going out and bringing in more donations from your wider network. And make sure that you're connecting with those supporters, post updates to your page, really thank them for their involvement throughout the campaign and bring them along on this journey with you. They want to be a part of it with you. That's why they're supporting you. So it's a really collaborative approach, and make sure you do acknowledge your supporters throughout. Take a closer look at planning that project. So your network map is going to be the key to your successful crowdfunding campaign. It's something that you will refer to time and time again throughout the whole course of the campaign, and it's going to be your absolute go-to piece of resource in order to know how you're doing this campaign, who you're reaching out to, and how you're going to communicate with those groups of people. Crowdfunders primarily get funded by those that are close to the project owner or close to the organization. So you need to have a really good understanding of who in your friends and family, in your team, in your, maybe it's a group of volunteers that you work with, you're going to be reaching out to in the first instance. If you can, make sure you line up those donations ahead of going live from your close core network, so friends, family, team members. And as soon as you go live, you reach out to those people and you say, now's the time, please can you donate to our page, it's live. They'll pop their donations on, and only at that time do you then go on to start promoting your crowdfunder to different groups within your network map. The reason for this is once you start promoting to a slightly wider network, they will take one look at your page and see that you've already got support on there. You've already raised a bit of money and it looks credible. It looks like it's on the road to success right from the beginning. If you start shouting about your crowdfunding campaign on social media, or you've got a press release going out on the first day that it launches and there's no money raised on it yet at all, it's really not going to yield many donations. People don't want to be the first to donate to a campaign, especially if they're not very close to the organization or the idea or project owners in the first instance. So make sure you get those people, your core audience, hooked in and locked in secured pledges before you go out to a wider group. You're going to want to think about partners. That could be partners within business. That could be if you use venues. It could be the venues. It could be suppliers, and then other groups as well. So collaborative organizations, people that you work with professionally, people that know of you or in the same industry. Beyond that, you're going to think about things like social media. If you haven't already, get some social media channels set up specifically for either your organization or your project idea, and make sure you're building those online communities around those pages in the planning stages. Community, so face-to-face, get yourself out there at any networking events. We're at a brilliant time of year now where there's lots of different fairs and things going on within towns and villages, cities. Make sure that you're present at those and just talk to people about what it is that you're doing. You might have a chamber of commerce that you can actually tap into the business community, or go and speak to people on the high street and really bring in the business community to get behind you as well. They might be able to offer rewards. They might be able to shout about what it is that you're doing within their own networks. And then maybe local schools, colleges, those kind of academic institutions where they have automatic networks already involved there, especially if you're raising money for a tech-based product or idea. Do you have any colleges or universities locally? where that might sit really well with the type of things that they are teaching. Could you make sure that they've got at least some information up about what it is that you're doing within their student unions or within, you know, staff rooms? Maybe you've got people fundraising on behalf because they're really, really into what you're doing. So, and any place that has an existing network already, try and use your connections or try and have conversations with people where you can actually utilize those networks to your benefit. And finally, press and blogs. You can always reach out to local media outlets, radio stations, to see if they might either do a shout out on social media or a short little interview with you. But do make sure that you queue those conversations up in the early stages of your crowdfunding campaign, ideally in the planning stages, but make sure that they're not actually doing any of those things like a social media shout out or anything until you are at least 50% raised towards your total, because those kind of promotional efforts will really push that message out to a much wider audience, and you want to look in a really strong position to reaching your target before that happens, because again, those that view your page will think, okay, they're almost there, I'm not personally connected with this project, but actually my money is going to help them to hit this target and I want to see that thing happen, that idea, that product. So do bear that in mind in terms of time frames. There are two groups of people that will potentially pledge on your project, and we've talked about this kind of blue group quite a bit. So the people that believe in you and believe in your idea, that's going to be your core network, or people within your industry, people that you already work with and you have existing connections with. There will also be a group of your supporters that are really interested in the types of rewards that you have on offer. So do use those rewards listed as a way to promote your campaign as well. If any businesses have donated rewards to you, do make sure that they are promoting the fact that they have done so to their own customer base, because that's going to incentivize their customers to potentially get a reward from your page, which ideally would be a discounted product or service from that local business. So you're automatically tapping into a new audience there. When you're setting your target, it's really important to make sure that your target is realistic. So do start with the minimum that you're going to need to make your project happen. You can always overfund your project. So you can set something called a stretch target, which enables you to carry on fundraising once you've hit that initial target and your project is still live. So do always put a bit of planning into how much do you actually need to get this idea off the ground, and also what's realistic for the amount of people you might be able to reach on that network map. Lock down any of those key pledges ahead of the live date. As I mentioned earlier, speak to your core network, friends and family, team members to see if you can get some pledges secured ahead of time, and try and have a really good grasp of where that first 25% at least of the money that you need is going to come from. Who are you going to reach out to? Have you got promises of an amount of a donation already? Do a bit of the legwork ahead of time, and that way the whole process of the live campaign is a little bit smoother. Try not to choose a very large target without a solid plan to back it up. The reason we say to only have campaigns for around kind of 4 to 6 weeks is you do need to be able to keep up the momentum of promotion and having varied content and engaging with those supporters over that duration of time. If you have a very large target, you do need to think about the amount of people that you might need to put that in front of and how much you're going to need to be promoting that and keeping up that level of momentum. So it's absolutely fine to do so, but do have a solid plan of promotion and marketing in the first instance in your planning, and make sure you know your network really well and how you're going to reach out to them. And then, of course, the all-important creating that perfect project page. So you really want to be able to engage with your potential supporters. So make sure you've got a really clear and memorable title. If you can, put an engaging and shareable video at the top of your page. This is a great way to convey all of the information about what you're doing and who you are and why you're raising the money in about 1.5 minutes. Most people these days are short on time. They engage better with visual content as opposed to lots and lots of text. So it can be a wonderful way to really hook in your potential supporters in a short amount of time, and they may well decide off the back of that video if they would like to donate, or it may well be enough to get them to then read the rest of your page. Do have a concise project aim. That's actually a portion of the page where there is a word count. So you do have to be concise when you're letting us know the project aim. Make it really clear, really tangible to your audience, and set that realistic target as well. You can include links to your social media platforms, which is a really brilliant way to kind of ping pong people from one platform to another, keeping them engaged with all of the wonderful things that you're doing outside of the crowdfunding campaign as well. We mentioned updating your crowd throughout the journey, so you can post updates which will appear on your page, but also get emailed out to all of your supporters that have supported your campaign so far. It's a brilliant way to thank those who have for supporting, to do a call to action at different stages of your campaign, to highlight any wonderful rewards and give shout outs to different businesses. Do utilize that as much as possible. You can carry on doing that after the campaign closes as well, to keep your supporters in the loop as to how you've developed the project post crowdfunding campaign. Do use headings, subheadings, pick out any key information in bold, really draw the supporter's eye all the way through the page so that they can really see all of that relevant information popping, and make sure that you use a really good mix of visuals there as well. So lots of engaging photos. Have a really brilliant list of rewards, nice varying price points and varying ideas when it comes to rewards. And also, if you can, a nice clear breakdown of the costs so that your supporters can really see where their money's going. I mentioned at the start of the session, the extra funding. There is a whole section when you're completing your project page setup about extra funding. You just need to let us know in the first instance where you are in the country and what type of organisation that you have, whether you're a not-for-profit or a charity or for-profit or a sole trader, for example. If so, if you fit into the right eligibility with your organisational structure and whereabouts you are, you can let us know also about your types of project delivery. So who's going to benefit, what are the potential outcomes, and off the back of all of that, we should be able to match you with some of our extra funding partners if you're eligible. And all you need to do is, in your project dashboard, you just can view all of the different funds that you've been matched with, and you can apply for those by clicking the apply for funding button. And it's a short kind of 10 to 15 minute application process for each of the funds. You can receive more than one pot of money as well, so do apply for everything that you think would be a good match for you. Just briefly want to touch on running the project. Everybody can help you, okay? So everybody that you talk to has a role to play in your crowdfunding campaign. They can share the project on your behalf. They may be able to offer a reward, and they could make a financial donation, make a pledge to your project too. So have these conversations nice and early in the planning stages so you know who's going to be doing what. But it's a great message to go out with, that you're not just asking for money from people, but actually there's other ways that they can get involved too and feel part of the journey. We have a brilliant project dashboard for you to engage with throughout the course of the campaign. You can manage every aspect of your campaign through this dashboard. You can apply for extra funding. You'll be able to see what your project is trending towards in terms of the amount of money we expect you to raise based on your activity so far. It's a great tool to make sure that you get familiar with, and we have lots of guides on how to use the dashboard as well. But you can control pretty much every aspect of your campaign from here. Now, somebody that has run not one, but many successful crowdfunding campaigns is the wonderful Victoria Lupton from Scenario, who I'd love to invite onto the screen to give us her take on what it's like to crowdfund, and to crowdfund as part of the Tech4Good Awards, which is awesome. Hi there, Victoria, how are you?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you so much for joining us.
No worries.
Thank you for waiting patiently while I went through all the slides in the background. Would you mind telling us a little bit more about, we've chosen this specific project because this was linked very much with the awards in 2021, but would you mind telling us a little bit more about this particular project, so Fund Children's Education in Lebanon and Jordan?
Yeah, of course. So I co-founded Scenario in 2015, and we work in Lebanon and Jordan, and more recently in Palestine on participatory theatre projects, and more recently on education projects in schools, so doing play-based learning. We started off by doing theatre projects that really allow communities to unleash their potential and their power, and more recently realized that this kind of model of theatre really was applicable in schools, and that teachers can be using play and can be using theatre techniques to improve their children's learning. So we have an app and we have a training that we've delivered to almost 3,000 teachers across Lebanon and Jordan. And this particular project was supporting that app and the trainings that were happening in Lebanon and Jordan. It was happening in 2021, so it was kind of tail end of COVID. It was also, there's been a quite dramatic collapse in Lebanon in the last few years. So Lebanon was in a really difficult moment. And the funds from this project went straight to our projects in Lebanon and Jordan. So allowing us to train teachers in the classroom to use play and theatre, and to update and upgrade our Scenario Play Kit app. The app is used by teachers, so it's downloaded and used by teachers, and it's like a huge resource bank for teachers to use of games and songs and stories to use in the classroom.
Amazing. You raised a huge amount of money from a large amount of supporters as well. 164 supporters is a really decent amount of supporters. So you're obviously connecting with your crowd. What was your decision to crowdfund? Was it that you thought, okay, we've got an existing customer base here, we can really utilize this, or was it quite a new idea for you in the first instance? Because you'd done this before, am I right? This wasn't your first crowdfunding endeavor.
Yeah, this was our second crowdfunder, and we've now done at least one every year since the first one happened in 2020. The reason we did our first crowdfunder was because since 2015, our original funds for Scenario's work came from running fundraising events, live events in London, and then we would take the money and go and do projects in Lebanon and Jordan. Now we have many more institutional funders and donors, but the kind of live event, which we call the Scenario Supper, still plays a really important part in the in funding the organization, and in particular in funding overheads and salaries and that kind of thing. In 2020, obviously because of COVID, we couldn't do a live event, so we decided to do an online crowdfunder as a kind of experiment to see whether it would work. We did a crowdfunder in 2020, and it was right after the Beirut explosion, which happened in August 2020. So it was also a kind of emergency crowdfunder to support communities affected by the explosion through theatre and wellbeing activities. And that was really successful. And we were actually really surprised by how much funding we were able to unlock from that. And then we decided to do crowdfunding campaigns every year after that. Our first live event was not until 2022. So 2021 also was replacing a live event. But I have to say, now that COVID is sort of, touch wood, over, it's still really useful. You know, we're still carrying on doing online crowdfunders alongside our live events. We're now running them at the same time. So we do a live event and we launch the crowdfunder sort of a couple of days before the live event. And it means that that's a way to connect with all the donors who can't actually attend the live event. Maybe they live abroad, maybe they're not able to attend on the day. And we're finding that it's a really useful way to kind of focus attention online at the same time as having a live event.
It's a really, really good idea, isn't it? To be able to kind of hit every single area of your potential audience by doing something in conjunction. I love that idea. Was there anything that you found throughout your experience that you've either kind of learned from that first crowdfunder, or things that you found difficult and you've kind of found a workaround?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it you've mentioned, but I think it's worth me kind of emphasizing them. I think the main thing I've learned about crowdfunders is I think at the beginning, there was a kind of sense that, a crowdfunder is like a magical tool where you just put some stuff online and suddenly millions of people are going to support your cause, and it'll get all this amazing organic reach, and you know, your friend will start giving you money. That doesn't happen. It's just not realistic, I don't think, to expect that to happen, especially for, you know, Scenario's a smaller organization. I think unless you're a really gigantic organization with a huge comms reach, and huge budget to put on, you know, social media boosting, I don't think you're going to get that much of just like organic Facebook reach or whatever. But I think what I really learned is very valuable is that I think crowdfunding campaigns are a really good way to sort of package the information about your organization and give a really clean, you know, also the crowdfunder website looks great. Like the whole thing looks really kind of satisfying. You've got the video and you've got the photos. It's just a really nice way to kind of draw attention towards a specific project and get people to give, because obviously we've got a donate button on our website, but asking people to go there, I think is not very attractive, and there's not a sense of urgency. And I think what a crowdfunder does is it gives you a short, limited period of time to really focus your attention on getting people to give. I think one of the most difficult things about a crowdfunder is it really does take absolutely loads of time. It's like, it's not as expensive as running a live event, but it takes almost as much time. And I think you really need to be able to factor that time in to your team. Otherwise the thing will kind of fizzle out a bit, I think. And like you were saying, that time does need to happen throughout the process. I think visuals are really important. So we've really put time into making sure that our video is good. I think we're lucky because of the type of work we do, that, theatre with children, that we've got really nice photos. And I think having really high quality photos means a lot. The Crowdfunder team were really helpful in helping us to kind of structure the information and the page. So one thing that they did, I wonder if we can go back, Zoe, to the sample page that we were just at.
Sure. It will take me a little moment, but we'll get there.
Yeah, of course. Because I think things like having the subtitles, here, I think things like having those bold subtitles are actually really important. Having statistics is very important. Giving concrete data about the work, and really being selective over that information. So selecting 2 or 3 key pieces of information that have numbers and hopefully, sources, it's like a UNICEF stat on there, I think really builds credibility for the work. I think this thing about making sure that you get sort of 25% of the campaign of the money raised before you make it public is really important. In all the crowdfunders we've done, we've always made sure that happens. So we go first to the people who we know, they're loyal supporters, they give every year. We kind of go first to them, ask them to give, get to that 25% mark, and then push beyond. And by the way, you shared the campaign, and we raised 74 or 79,000, I think, through the campaign. But the original target was much less than that. I think the original target was 40,000. Then we pushed it up to 50,000, and then it ended up going really well. So it went more. 70,000, sorry. So yeah, I think starting with a lower target is really important. And then the final thing to say is just, if you're in a position where you have some bigger donors and some smaller donors, which we definitely have, usually the bigger donors would attend our live events, and then we have some smaller donors who are maybe friends or friends of the team. I definitely think focus on the big donors at the beginning. And then once you've got a really good amount of money already raised and you've got that credibility behind the project, then you can ask, your wider network to give smaller amounts. And what we did, which was quite successful on this crowdfunder that raised 70,000, was we then asked everyone on the scenario team and all of our volunteers to share the link to the campaign on all of the WhatsApp groups and to their friends. And for the team, we actually had like an Excel spreadsheet where we had all the names of the team members, and then we had they were responsible for filling in who they'd sent it to, and we asked them to each send it to 10 different people. So if that's kind of accessible or feels appropriate to do, I think that's really helpful, because that helped us a lot. I think weirdly, I don't think you'd think of WhatsApp as being a useful tool for Crowdfunder, but actually I think WhatsApp and email weirdly are like the most important tools for our crowdfunders, even more than sort of Facebook, I think, or Instagram, in that, WhatsApp, I think all of us involved in the campaign would just send it to every single group we have, just saying, can you give even just £5 help? So that's how you get, I think, good numbers. Because I think the credibility of the project is both about how much money you're raising, but also about how many people are involved in the campaign as well. Yeah, those are a few thoughts.
Those are amazing, and everything that we absolutely talk about in our webinars as well. So you've really harnessed the whole idea of doing it successfully and just repeated that format every year, which is wonderful. And you mentioned there about those kind of call to actions, and those are the kind of things that project owners here today can really think about. So having those calls to actions for potential supporters or people in your team that kind of give that level of accountability almost. And I know it sounds strange in that you're putting kind of the responsibility onto others, but actually you almost need to spoon feed people what you need them to do, and to say, please share with 10 people by the weekend, even in an update. Or like you have, I want to actually know who you've shared it with. That's fab. If you can do that with kind of your team. And that goes for things like press releases as well. That's why we give you in our Knowledge Hub a really lovely guide on how to create a press release. Don't just phone up the local radio station and say, this is what we're doing. here's our link, can you find out and write something about us? Create something, spoon feed it to them and say, this is what I want you to put in.
Yeah.
This is the post that I want you to share with your network. You know, take the legwork out of it for others and they'll be more likely to get behind you.
That's what we also did with our team, just to say, is that we sent a sort of draft message with the link to the crowdfunder with an image via WhatsApp. So they literally just need to forward that message to all their friends and it's very quick for them. The other thing is just to say, don't underestimate the importance of an actual tailored email, because I think, you know, it's one thing sending one blanket email to every single one of your supporters, but what ends up happening, which is why it's so time consuming, is, you know, me and the couple of other people in the team who focus on these campaigns end up sending sort of 100 individually tailored emails to all of the different funders, and it really does help to get support. It really, you know, like with all other philanthropic fundraising, that like tailored focus, I think, really helps.
Definitely. And it's something we touched upon with the network map, but we really do kind of talk about this a lot at Crowdfunder, is know your audience, know who you're talking to, know what message is going to resonate with them. So those tailored emails might read slightly differently depending on what part of that project resonates with that recipient. It's not going to be the same for everybody. So a blanket email is not going to yield good results. Whereas if it's got a personal contact name at the top, if it's talking about things that you know will resonate with that particular individual or that particular business or organization, whatever it might be, that is going to really get them interested and want to support you. So brilliant advice. Thank you so much, Victoria. I'm conscious of time. We've got a good 10 minutes left though. So I am going to just go through the support that we offer. And then would you mind popping back on for the Q&A in a moment?
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Wow, what some amazing inspiration there. And to come back every year and run crowdfunders, there's obviously got a brilliant format in place at Scenario. So I would highly recommend taking a look at their projects, going through, looking at their socials, you know, seeing all about the wonderful work that they do, and take a bit of inspiration from those project pages as well. Okay, so I did touch on there the kind of support that we have on offer for you. So we do run these monthly webinars that are introduction to crowdfunding webinars. We also host drop-in sessions every week. So you can come along via Zoom and speak to a member of Crowdfunder and get any of your questions answered. It's a brilliant thing to do. We had one this morning and we had some lovely project owners in there sharing their advice and experience with one another as well. So a lovely collaborative approach to problem solving in the drop-ins. We also have our learning guides. It's a really brilliant online learn platform. 4 separate modules for you to work through. Again, really user friendly, a brilliant way for you to get all of the knowledge that you need ahead of time. If you're just thinking about crowdfunding for your particular idea, always start at the Learn platform and work your way through those. We have the Knowledge Hub, which is full of brilliant guides and step-by-step kind of instructions, if you like, for each different stage of your crowdfunding campaign. When you set up an account with us, you'll let us know the type of thing that you're going to be crowdfunding for, or whether you're a charity or personal cause, crowdfunding for business, all those kinds of things. And we will make sure that you have tailored email advice, signposting you in the right direction for the resources that are most suitable for you. We've got a brilliant customer support team as well for all of those technical issues or queries that you might have, but I would always recommend checking our help centre first. That is where you will find the FAQs and the troubleshooting guides and the answers to pretty much any question you can think of. If you still need a bit of a helping hand, then of course contact our customer support team, and then of course that live project dashboard as well. Okay, so what would be brilliant is to invite everybody onto the screen, and let's see if we can get through some of these questions. Hi, Catherine, thank you.
Hey.
Victoria and Charlie, are you in the room as well? Or can we get you on the screen just fielding some of those questions if possible? She might be in the chat box. Hi there. Okay, let's have a look at these. Charlie, have you got any that spring to mind? That would be a good one.
So the ones that I've left in here, we've got 2 good ones to start with. So we've got one from Mark. Is it possible to extend an appeal beyond 8 weeks?
Absolutely. So you have kind of a predetermined calendar, if you like, in your crowdfunding campaign dashboard. You can extend your project for up to 10 weeks from its go live date, and you can extend that at any time. You can either set it right at the beginning of the campaign, or if your campaign is already live but you'd like to keep it going for a little bit longer, you can extend it up to 12 weeks through your dashboard. Any longer than that, you would need to contact our customer support team to amend that from our end. As we say, though, it's recommended to not run too much of a lengthy campaign because it doesn't necessarily yield more donations. What we do find is that crowdfunding campaigns are a bit of a U shape. So they launch, everyone's excited, you get a peak in donations, and then after a little while in the middle of the campaign, it kind of starts to drop off and then ramps back up towards the end. So you want to have a nice plan in place to combat that potential lull and that drop in donations. And by having a really lengthy campaign, it might be that kind of lull just extends where you don't have much engagement. So if you've got a solid plan in place to be able to combat that, then absolutely. Or you might have some events coming up that you want to make sure you include in your campaign. Absolutely fine. I wouldn't be tempted to extend it just because you think it might bring in more money, though. It's better to have a shorter, sharper, kind of more concise fundraising effort. Would you agree, Victoria, Catherine?
I definitely agree with keeping it short. I think we have sometimes had I think it's really good to have a fixed endpoint. The only thing we have had some success with is Crowdfunder have at points kept the link live for us even after the end of the campaign. Because the only thing is sometimes we'll send emails with a link or even printed stuff with a link to the Crowdfunder campaign, and then people try and access that link after the campaign's finished and can't give. So yeah, sometimes there's an endpoint, but the link still remains open, which is quite helpful, I think, for fundraisers.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. I definitely think a concentrated amount of time, because you've got to sustain it. You've got to have the energy, you've got to have the resources, and I think, and also you want to see a kind of conclusion in it yourself, and then hopefully plan the next one. Or work out, you've got to do all the follow-ups with everybody and divvy up all your rewards, and all that kind of stuff takes time. So the longer you leave the campaign going, the more that's going to encroach into the time you might have set aside to do that. So I would definitely kind of keep the focus tight.
It's a really good point, actually. Something that we don't always touch upon is those things that need doing post campaign closing. So delivering those rewards, absolutely. Some people kind of go, right, the crowdfunder's over, take a breather, relax. But it's almost, you need that little bit of extra time to kind of go, right, now we're delivering the rewards and then we'll take a breather, because you might have things that you need posting out or whatever you might need to do. So do make sure you've got people around you in that stage as well to help you out with all of those bits and pieces. Okay. Could the crowd that you reach before launching donate already, or do they need to do it once it's launched? So that's a question in from Ego. You do need to hang on until the project is live, because then your project link, they'll be able to access the actual page and donate. But it's a really good idea to get people kind of excited about it before launch. But also when it comes to securing those donations, what you want to do is make sure you have those conversations and say, at this time on this day, the project will be live. And as soon as you've kind of set that live, you go back to that group of people and say, here is the live link. Now use this to make that donation. Is that something that you did, Victoria, with your group? You said you had some really good core donors that you knew you could rely on. Yeah,
for sure. And sometimes we'd email them before going live. But I think it is better to just email once you're live saying we just went live, please give. And then it's just, you don't go public until a week or two later.
And we mentioned before, you are in complete control of your campaign as well. And both Catherine and Victoria mentioned there is this slight kind of misconception with crowdfunding that once you've gone live with your project, all of a sudden the magical funding fairies land on Crowdfunder and start donating to your project. We wish it was like that, but the reality is that you will need to use that project link and start promoting your project. So there's no kind of danger of, just because your project's live, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden you've not got control of people seeing the page and all of these kind of things. You can use that link and share it with those that you would like to first, and then you can determine then when you'd like to start pushing that project out to a wider audience. I have a question here from Kev. If I forgot to clarify, the 500,
Sorry,
Not sure
Kev's question's been moved.
Okay.
So Kev's question was, we're developing a personal mobility vehicle. It's very fun, agile and convenient. Would a discount on the RRP be a suitable reward? So the discount is £500, which brings the RRP down to £3,000.
I think anything that's listed at a discount on as a reward is a nice incentive. I think you just have to think about who is your audience with that particular reward. Will that level of discount be enough of an incentive to get somebody to buy it via the crowdfunding campaign, as opposed to in the future not via the crowdfunding campaign? It might be something that you actually need to do a bit of research and get some feedback from that potential audience as to what is it that's going to make them claim that reward whilst your crowdfunder is live. It's hard for us to kind of say what level of discount that should be. I think Victoria, you were wanting to say something there.
Well, I just wanted to mention something about rewards, which is that we do have rewards, but instead of offering, I just thought it might be useful for some people to know that instead of offering actual sort of discounts or items or objects, what we say is things like give confidence or give leadership or give well-being. And then we're like, you know, for £5, you can give, 2 children the opportunity to participate in a term of choir sessions or whatever it might be. So instead of giving something for yourself, for the donor, you give something for the beneficiaries. We find that really nice because it keeps everyone really focused on the actual purpose of giving rather than on what they get.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a really nice combination of depending on what the project is as well, I think, because some things are going to be maybe bringing a product to industry, in which case a pre-sale might be really beneficial. But if it's something where there is that kind of non-tangible, if you like, it's not a physical product, but things that bring people a nice sense of that warm, fuzzy feeling for having done something good with their money. Or we sometimes see things like sponsor a certain element of the project delivery. It's not that you're going to put a logo on anything, but you're actually, we had a lovely charity where you could, one of their rewards was to sponsor the kit that was needed for the volunteers each week. And they listed what was in that kit. And then a little bit more would provide tea and cake for that volunteer at the end of their shift. So think creatively about things that give people that lovely sense of doing good with their money, things that if you have capacity to offer that you might have as a service, product, ticket, whatever it is. But if it's things that have been given to you to list as a reward, think about incentivizing those by listing them at slightly below the RRP. And the way that you're going to figure out what the best thing to do in terms of the discount is to think about that particular customer, for want of a better word. What's going to make them get it from you rather than on the high street? And we're normally looking around the 10 to 20% markdown would be a good place to start. I'm just conscious of time. We've run over a little bit, but let's just go through maybe one or two more. Any that we haven't got round to, we'll pop into the follow-up email. Do you find using a video in your campaign boosts the effectiveness? From a crowdfunding standpoint, we would say yes, because it's a brilliant way to engage people in this short amount of time. It can really be a window into you as an organisation, a window into your project. It's highly visual normally, shows personality, and all of those things are what engage with supporters. Catherine and Victoria, I'll let you have your take on this one as well.
100% video, and if you are including video, please think about accessibility and include some captions or something. I always have to get that point in, but yeah, videos really engaging, can be quite low cost to produce, and the more you do, it gives you more content as well, not just on the platform but in your social media channels and so on, and link it all back, and you can use and reuse it.
Completely agree. I think they're crucial, and just to say, I think keep them short and as positive as possible. I think that really helps. Trying to make them fun and positive rather than sort of really devastating. Exactly. That I think is really important.
Amazing, thank you. And we do have a really useful guide in our Knowledge Hub called How to Nail Your Project Video, and it shows you or talks you through how to do it in that super engaging way. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Victoria and Catherine and Charlie, for joining me today. It's been a really jam-packed session with some really great content, so thank you all so much. I'm going to shift on to the next slide, which is just the next steps for everyone that's here today. So all that's left is for us to say our goodbyes. And thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for joining. And good luck, everybody, with your crowdfunding campaigns. And do feel free to make use of any of our drop-ins or future webinars to answer any of your other questions.